few months ago, I set a small experiment in motion. I asked our 17-year-old intern from New York to teach me something about the brain and about the machines we keep comparing it to. Think AI. Camilla Tecce joined en masse as a student intern, and I gave her this research brief. So I wanted her to work out how AI mimics human neural pathways and where the resemblances break down. I wanted some answers from someone who would say, "This doesn't make sense," out loud rather than just nodding along, and that's certainly Camilla. What she brought back was sharper than what I'd expected. So here it is in one line. AI is optimized to reassure you, and your brain is built to protect you. This is all featured in our co-written article. So take a look at that. You'll find the link in the notes below. But they're not the same instinct, and the gap between them is exactly where human judgment still earns its keep. So AI reaches for the calm, balanced, statistically defensible kind of answer. And there's somewhat of a positivity bias researchers call sycophancy. However, our brains often lead the other way. There are 86 billion odd neurons, much of their wiring devoted not to making us happy, but to helping us survive, with a negativity bias that would rather flag 10 harmless shadows than miss the one that matters. Camilla made this real with a scenario every parent will recognize. Have a look at this in the article. A young woman walking home through a park at dusk, a stranger behind her, and that cold feeling that something's not quite right. So we put it to the leading AI models. Every one of them gently, reasonably, talked her down. Not one led with instinct, of course. Not one said the thing any of us would say to someone we love: if it feels wrong, act as though it is wrong. So today, Camilla and I are having a chat, and we're narrowing down on three things. And first, I wanted to get Camilla talking about how her generation actually uses AI, not how we assume they do, and why she says her peers want to coexist with it rather than rely on it. Secondly, what's the line between them? What an AI model genuinely does well and what should be considered distinctly human? Things like instinct, vigilance, the felt stake in an outcome that no model can hold. And thirdly, how the two can work together, letting the machine carry the logic and widen the options for us while a human stays firmly in the loop for the moment of judgment. Camilla researched the science behind this piece, and she supplied its sharpest example. And she's off to university shortly, and I suspect we'll all be hearing a lot more from her. Her generation is the one that will live the longest with these answers, so it seems only right that she gets the microphone. Camilla, welcome to this conversation. It's wonderful to have you here.
Hi, Mark. I'm so excited to be talking about my research today. Thank you so much for inviting me and having me. And I think we should just dive right in. Hit me with the first question.
Straight to the point. I like it. So, Camilla, we talked quite a lot in the article about the various positive and negative biases that AI versus the human brain might experience and how they might complement each other. But I'm just keen to hear a little bit more from your perspective, speaking from a generational perspective, as well as what really interested you when you did your research. What are some of the things that really stood out to you as important differentiators between the human brain and what AI can achieve?
Okay. One thing that my brain can do that AI never will is honestly the idea of, yes, self-generating ideas, but also taking inspiration from the world around it. And what I mean by that is being observational and like being able to take everything in and really go into deep about what that means and make strong connections. So I think that AI will never be as observational as somebody, with a pair of eyes, a conscience, a prefrontal cortex, a memory. Like AI kind of only exists in what we tell it, but our body and our conscience exist in what we see, what we smell, what we taste, what we experience. Like the human experience is something that AI could never replicate because AI is not a human and AI doesn't experience things, kind of just does what we tell it.
So there's the whole body experience and physiological emotions. We talk a lot in our article and various conversations about intelligence. How far does that extend? And I suppose we should talk about various aspects of emotional intelligence.
Another thing that AI could never do is be empathetic. Artificial intelligence. I mean, I think that there are many types of intelligence, but I think that the main, you know, intelligence practice that AI employs is the logic practice, right? I don't think that AI really has a JQ or an EQ. It doesn't have a strong judgment or emotional quotient. It doesn't really feel for you. It kind of just does its job. So, under that umbrella definitely falls the idea of kind of like I was saying, jealousy and instinct and vigilance and happiness and sadness. Like AI doesn't really have a soul. And I think AI doesn't really feel things. It's a robot. Like it literally just doesn't feel. And maybe that might change as AI evolves. But in this now, I don't think that AI could ever feel for us.
Wow, that's pretty sobering when you put it that way, Camilla. Feels suddenly a little bit lonely when I'm thinking about my interactions with AI, realizing it kind of does mimic in some ways caring, but I digress. Let's talk about now some of those human elements to your life. You've grown up largely without AI. At the age of 17 now, when you look back and you think about the future 17-year-olds who are in school now, younger people and AI, what are some of the things that are on your mind? What are some of the things that you really appreciate in being where you've been in this journey to date?
I would say I'm really happy to have at least experienced the formative years of my childhood, like growing up in a world without AI, growing up in a world that kind of taught me how to think for myself. So that if AI eventually dies out, I won't, be clawing at some new invention to rely on it, because I've grown up without relying on AI. I've learned a lot of valuable lessons and experiences that no computer, no Google search, no AI could ever have taught me. Like, I think lessons and judgments, specific ones at least, can only be learned through experience. So, I don't know, like, kind of like a closing thought. Like, I think, many people I know wish that they were as smart as AI and are worried that AI is going to take their jobs. But there are certain things that people learn that AI will never learn that makes us, individual, even different from other humans. Like it makes us stronger and smarter and, you know, more us. And I think that that is so valuable and something that I don't think AI could ever take away from me now. Maybe in the future, but I think I'm glad to have grown up in a world that I have learned from and that I have grown from.
Okay, so that's very heartening. I had a big smile on my face here, Camilla. And when you look around, look at your peer group, and you think about how they're using AI, how you're using AI, what sorts of things do you talk about? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I don't really think my friends use it in irresponsible ways. We don't use it to write papers. And most of the time, my teachers will give us AI guidelines for projects or for homework assignments that we do, saying we can't use it to, look up, articles that we can reference. We can't use it to break down quotes. Like all our ideas need to be our own. You're saying, I want to be able to use AI as a tool, not the whole toolbox.
Makes sense. Yeah, it sounds very sensible. So, what about the future as you become more AI savvy and you're very self aware? What's your plan? What's your goal in terms of how you're seeing yourself develop as a student into the future, as a user of AI? What are the limits for you?
And I don't think I really need AI to write things for me. I think I can do it on my own and it will actually sound better. And I just think that I would like AI in the future or, as I'm using it now, to be something that I can reference if I really get stuck or if I really, really, really need help. But I just don't think it should be the foundation for all my writing. It shouldn't be something that I always, run to when I need help, because I think that maybe AI is not going to be around in 20 years and maybe it's going to take over the world, but regardless, I still want to be able to think for myself. And I think that outside of, work in the classroom, like I think it's really important to be able to think for yourself and generate your own ideas. So like actually answer the question, I guess I would really, just want it to be something that could help me if I really get stuck, but not something that I ever want to actively rely on like a crutch because I don't think anybody really needs AI. I think there are many smart people in the world, and even if people don't really think that they are smart, they definitely make up for it in other places. So that's something that AI could definitely never do.
Thank you for sharing. What a lovely vision for the future, and I think very, very sensible, Camilla. Just turning to another aspect of your research and our article, which explored the positive versus the negative in terms of mindsets. We talked about how the human brain is likely much more wired to protect us than it is to make us happy. And so it's going to be looking out for more risks. And AI has been trained to, in many respects, at least in most of its forms, please the user. So it's looking out for the positives. And of course, that means we have constructs like sycophancy, the AI that's just wanting to tell you why you are right, and even walk you back from some of the assumptions that you're making based upon human instinct, survival instinct. So just zoning out a little bit and looking a bit more high level at this sort of positive AI bent towards pleasing the user versus the human brain, which is, as we've discussed, naturally wired to look out for things like danger and our instincts that are often very alert to that. Tell me a little bit about what you found and what you found interesting in the research.
If you have a gut feeling about something, it's your brain jumping to a conclusion that hasn't been made yet. So that kind of circles back to the idea of paranoia, or specifically abnormal attribution of intent, I think is what it's called. So that is a cognitive bias that supports negative feelings towards a decision or a scenario without even assessing all real circumstances and or consequences. And that's paranoia in small or large amounts, like is built into our body. There can be a threat anywhere in the world. And I think our brain has been trained or, has learned to kind of be aware instead of always, in fight or flight. Like it has learned to be aware, but not actively searching for threats. Because yes, our brain develops a negative bias, but also like, I think it's nice to think that sometimes, it's okay to feel safe. And I feel like that has been a little bit more normalized as time has gone on. But obviously there are still threats and still things that can harm us. And I think our brain overthinks things, make sure it's not missing anything if there is something that could potentially harm us. Which surprised me because I went into this research thinking that AI was like, because it's intelligent, or allegedly so, intelligence is not only about supporting the best possible outcome, it's about supporting all the outcomes in between the negative and the positive, as well as the truly negative outcomes. So really exploring everything. And it surprised me that AI is not actually as intelligent as, people lead it on to be, for the reason that it doesn't, there's a whole other side of options and outcomes that AI doesn't even think to explore and or tell you.
Well, that certainly makes sense, Camilla. Thank you. And, there is this understanding that we've developed here in our conversation today and in the research that we did together and the article we wrote around the fact that there are certain aspects of being a human being, like our instincts, our intuition, that deeply held gut feeling. You talked about this in relation to walking across the park. The sun's going down and you're in New York and something just doesn't feel right. You look over your shoulder and AI might tell you later, well, that's just this and that, and you'll probably, out of all the possibilities, it's unlikely something bad's going to happen. But we know that our gut serves us for a reason, our instinct. So wonderful work. Very, very much appreciated, Camilla. Thank you. And thanks so much for having a chat with me today.
Thank you so much, Mark, for letting me talk about my thoughts on AI. And this was a really fun experience for me. And I guess to people that are listening, AI, it's great. It can be great for so many things. But just because something's great doesn't mean that we need it. Okay. Just because something is good for some things doesn't mean it's good at everything. And I think that that is something that, once again, you could only learn from the human experience. So, my advice to anyone who's listening is to go out and experience things and learn things and make mistakes and, I don't know, get jealous, be hyper aware, like feel all those things because, AI can't feel for you.